Good morning, everybody. Thanks again for joining us. We'll get started here now. We'll have this QR code pop up again throughout the session today. So if you miss it, you can register, but of course you'll receive an email as well. So just an FYI. So welcome to the Campaign Canvas, always a really popular topic for some reason, and I think it's pretty clear maybe as to why that's the case. But yeah, the Campaign Canvas is our focus today. There were a number of questions submitted, and we reached out to a number of newer users of Eloqua with some specific questions. And we got some great responses, which was fantastic. So thank you so much for getting back to us. A range of those responses also looked a little bit at other areas. So looking into the email editor and kind of landing pages. So we're going to try and really keep the narrow focus today on the canvas, but we'll be covering those in October and November as we do emails and then landing pages and forms. So hopefully you can join us for those as well. Alrighty, so quick welcome and introduction. We're going to look at a close look at the campaign canvas, the actions, options, setting, notes, and reporting, so analytics and insight. Then looking at some examples of using the canvas elements to drive a richer experience and show you some examples of what that looks like. And then also Canvas apps and integration with CRM and what that might look like. Now, if we have time, we'll revisit the release 22C information, but I'm hoping we'll get some good questions, etc., as we move through. So let me keep going. Housekeeping, as you know, we use Zoom to host our webinars. Replays are always available on the blog. You can access those there. Then throughout the session, if you do have questions, please use the Q&A. You can also upvote other questions. If you see something that looks familiar or that's a question you'd like to ask, go ahead and upvote that and we'll be able to see those and respond to those. If you wanted to ask a question that no one else can see, go ahead and use the chat function to do that. And my name is Derek Bell. I'm your host today and facilitator. There's that sneaky QR code again. So go ahead and scan that if you want to. And my role is Director of Marketing and Customer Success here at Marketing Cube. So thank you so much for joining us. All right, I want to throw some stats at you. And these stats are all gathered from the registration form that you submitted today to join this particular webinar. So right across the registrants for today's session, on average, people have been using Eloqua for 3.7 years. 20%, which almost sounds like it's a fudge stat, but I promise you it's exactly 20% of registrants today requested an SMS reminder. So hopefully you received that on your smartphone. 77% of you actually log into Eloqua every day. So certainly the audience that we've got with us today are people who are using the platform on a daily basis. There was certainly a group of people, though, who did respond to let me know that, look, I don't really use Eloqua every day, but I want to be able to understand how it works and how it functions. So as I'm briefing the marketing automation team, I can be smarter in the way that I brief them. So hopefully today's session is also helpful for you. Just randomly, 36%, which is the largest group within the registrants today, are using Zoom to facilitate different webinars. 54% are based in Australia, New Zealand, and just over 15% based in Asia. Of course, we do have some registrants from North America and Europe, etc., in the Middle East, but I'll share that information with them tomorrow night when we catch up with them. So just to give you an idea, there's a lot of information. If you're asking the right questions, there's some interesting information that you can gather from your registration process. Now, there were a few questions that were submitted this month, and I'll walk through some of these. Most of them will actually be covered as we go throughout today. So one from Cash, he said, is it possible to create a filter to check if anyone has clicked on a particular link or an email or a landing page? And the answer is absolutely yes, Kath. And the answer is a shared filter. So a shared filter acts just really the same as a segment. If you've built segments, you can build a shared filter. The interface is essentially exactly the same. You'll notice on the campaign canvas, there is an element that you can drag in called clicked. So clicked on an email, for instance. But what that means is, did they click on any link in that email? Doesn't matter which one, just any link. And that's really good for top of funnel type of campaigns where you're really just trying to garner some sort of idea of engagement. However, as you get further through the campaign, you now want to probably get quite specific as to which particular link they clicked on. And so that's where a shared filter comes into play. So a shared filter gives you all of the options that you see within the segment area of Eloqua, and you can now be very specific as to which landing page, which website, etc., that they actually clicked on. So a shared filter with a yes/no response is the answer to that question. Is there a way to send an email notification when a campaign is about to finish? The answer is yes, and I'll show you how to do that when we get further into today's session. Particularly important for campaigns we run for 12 to 24 months. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And the maximum notice that you can automatically receive from Eloqua, which I'll show you, is 5 days. Part of me kind of wishes they would extend that a little bit, maybe out to 30 days. Would be a little bit more helpful. But I'm with those big campaigns. I also put those in my mail calendar as well, Kath, just as a reminder, and share them and invite a few other people on the team to it, just in case. I'm on leave or on holidays, whatever the case may be. So that would be that. Then Malcolm, I thought I'd take your feedback as a comment, a bit like Q&A on the ABC, right? So we'll take this as a comment. But thank you so much, Malcolm, for itemizing these points. We'll definitely cover these. So thank you for adding them. And then from Ashley, what is the best way to facilitate A/B testing? So we could probably almost do a whole user group just on, or maybe half a user group, maybe on A/B testing, Ashley. So I'll try and cover some of it today. I'll try and cover some of it today because most of it's actually the simple email campaign, but it depends on your objective. So that's cool. Let's dive in and see what we can get out of today for you. All right. So the key thing I wanted to do today as well is make sure we don't kill you with PowerPoint slides. This is kind of the last one for a little while. So let me jump out of that and we'll head into Eloqua. All right. So once you access Eloqua and you come to your orchestration menu, you come to campaigns, which is what you see right here in front of you. And we click on the big red button. And for the purposes of the exercise, I'm going to select a blank campaign and choose that and come on in. All right. So what you've got here, let me introduce you to the key areas of the platform so that we're crystal clear on what they are. I've actually got these all written down on a piece of paper so that I don't forget to tell you certain things. All right. So first one is obviously naming the campaign. So as soon as you click on save, you nominate where you want it to go. I'm going to drop it in here, for instance, and I'll call this sample test. That'll do. And I can drop it in there. I can navigate around, of course, and play with other folders, or I can use my favorites over here on the left, but I'll call it a sample test. And typically you want to save your canvas because some of the elements, when you start playing with some of the elements, they won't do what you want them to do unless the canvas is actually saved. So one of the first things you really want to do is make sure you save your canvas. Okay, so that's the name of the campaign. Across here, we've got draft, and the draft is telling you that there are 3 things that need to be completed before I can actually get started. Now, what are they? If I click on it, it pops up and it tells me that there's some reporting fields that I need to populate because I've made them required as a default for every campaign. So I need to make sure I populate those. Okay, I can expand this out and I can see all the different elements down here. But in the file menu, you've got all the standard things that you would expect to see. You can create a template directly from here, open other ones, etc., save, and so on and so forth. Or you can just use the save button over here on the right-hand side. There are a range of actions available as well. So this verify option is, again, you'll see there's a button over here. What that does is it basically just goes through and tests everything for you. And the verification process is what feeds these error messages that you'll see up here. And they're not really error messages per se. They're just tasks that you need to complete before you can actually activate your particular campaign. All right. Then under options, we have campaign settings. And that's the slide out menu over here on the right-hand side. Then we have campaign fields. Now, this one will depend on how your individual instance is configured, but these are the reporting areas. So by making these mandatory, these 3 fields here actually feed directly into the dashboards, the Eloqua dashboards, and into Insight, but specifically into the dashboards, which will make the dashboards far more productive instead of just being a big solid block of one color that you can't see any granularity in. Now, for these other areas, these relate probably more so to integration with a CRM platform. And if you're creating campaigns in your CRM, you probably have similar fields, budgeted and actual. The whole point of this information is to be able to tie that into opportunity data with the CRM, so you can look at some ROI reporting. So that's what that's all about. You can actually add custom fields. In this particular instance for Marketing Cube, we don't have any custom fields, but if you wanted to add additional fields beyond these three right here that you wanted to be able to assign to every single campaign, and a good example would be, for instance, maybe internally, you have like a cost center type of code that you would assign to a campaign, because Eloqua may well just be one part of a campaign. There might be television advertising, magazine advertising, other online advertising that you're doing, and you want to be able to roll that all up into a single budget within the CRM and costs and so on and so forth. And so maybe you could add a custom field to capture that information. This is the notifications that Kath asked about. And so the way this works is I could nominate myself, and probably let's nominate Adrian. And what I can do here is select 1, 2, or 5 business days. So it's actually business days, not calendar days. 5 business days before the end date. And so that will trigger a standard Eloqua system generated email to those particular users, notifying them of the particular campaign and that its end date is about to be reached within those timeframes, 1, 2, or 5 business days. So that's how you go about that process. Now, if the person's not a user, you can't send them a notification. So they need to be a user within the platform. They can be a non-licensed consuming user, by the way. So that's one thing to be aware of. All right. Now, coming over to campaign settings, there are 5 areas here. So first one is where you're able to provide a description of your campaign. If you just want to, if you've got a geographically dispersed team, it can be helpful to do that. And this is our campaign start and end date. So remember, your Eloqua campaign must always have a start date and an end date. So you'll notice that you can start with a date and time, and obviously a time zone. However, the end date doesn't provide you with a time. And that's because it's actually 11:59 p.m. on that date. It's actually midnight, but I find that tends to get a bit confusing for people. So if we say 11:59 p.m. Is when it wraps up, that's the end. So if I selected the 28th, at 11:59 p.m. on the 28th in that particular time zone, that's when the campaign would actually end. Okay. There are some CRM options here too. So if you are integrated with a CRM platform and specifically with campaigns, so your Salesforce user community, Salesforce CRM user community, you'd be familiar with that. That information can flow through there. Okay. Now this one here, allow contacts to enter the campaign more than once. By default, that's turned off. And by default, that's a really good thing. Okay. But occasionally, and I say occasionally because it really is quite occasionally, you may need to have a campaign canvas that allows people to come through the campaign more than once, which also means you're overriding the ability for Eloqua to only ever send a single email to one person. No, that's not right. Sorry. Have a single person receive any one email more than once. Okay. So if you think of maybe like a contact us type of inquiry form, people potentially would fill in that multiple times. And from that contact us form, you may want to push them onto a canvas to deliver a variety of different emails. So that would be one example where you may want to override that. My experience is that you need to select that option before you activate your campaign. Forgetting to do it and coming back in and clicking it doesn't always deliver the result that you want. So if you do need to tick that box, make sure you do it before you launch your campaign. Okay, next one is notes. So notes are things that you can add to individual steps. So again, if you're collaborating with people, you can do a right click on any of these and go ahead and add a note. And once you add your note, you can see you've got 4,000 characters there. You get a little blue icon right here. So if you're collaborating with a team on a particular canvas across different time zones, or you may even be at the office and someone working from home, it can be a little bit easier sometimes to put specific information in the notes on the canvas itself. If you have a range of apps installed, they will appear here. Not much to show there at this stage. I will show you a little bit more about these here in a moment. We'll explore and expand on those. And then there's also some help as well. So you will find some videos, you'll find information to take you directly into the help center, some best practices, also some learning, etc. as well. So there's quite a bit of information there for you if you're brand spanking new to Eloqua. And even if you're not brand spanking new, you still may find some of that information helpful as well. Okay, so now down the left-hand side of a screen, you've got the search icon, which honestly, I don't think I've ever used the search bar here because I simply scroll down to reveal what I'm looking for. But it's broken into 4 areas. It's your audience. So it's all about segment. It's all about the people. Where are they coming from? Are they coming in from LinkedIn? Is it a webinar registrant, etc.? Or basically your core Eloqua database being segments. Next one is assets. So your emails. And you'll notice reporting only. I'll show you some examples here of these. The benefit of having this information sitting on the canvas is that when you do your reporting, it consolidates any form and landing page behavior into the campaign. Okay. And that's a good thing because it means you don't then have to pull 3 reports. You can pull just 1 report, which is much more helpful. Then you have decision steps. And there's a whole range of these. So basically, they're generally questions that you're expanding on. And you've got actions, which is basically when you look at the response to this information at the top, you want to take certain actions and do certain things. So let's dive in and have a look at some of these. All right, so please feel free to use the Q&A as we go through. Happy to expand on that. So what I'm trying to do here is drag out certainly some of the basic, but some that you may not use more frequently. So the key one at the very beginning of the whole exercise, of course, is your segment member. And certainly by default, 99%, oh, no, that's not true. Maybe 80% of the time, it'll be add members once when the campaign is first activated. However, you can add members regularly, and the reevaluation frequency, this was a question that came up from some of the newer users. What exactly does that mean? Okay, so what that means is that for the life of the campaign, and the life of the campaign is driven here by your start and end date. So for the life of the campaign, the reevaluation frequency is set to whatever you choose right here. So if it's every hour, it means every hour of every day for the duration of the campaign, Eloqua will go back to the segment, resave the segment, and if there are any new contacts that meet the filter criteria or have been uploaded to your segment, they will now flow automatically into the campaign. Now, the best example of this one is an event. Newsletters actually are a really good one too, but events are the best one, where you talk to the sales team and they say, yes, that is the definitive list. We will not be inviting anybody else. That's absolutely it. You're like, okay, fantastic. So you launch your campaign. You select the default option, which is this one. And about 23.5 seconds after the campaign goes live, the sales team come back and say, hey, I've got another 35 people. And you're like, oh, okay. So what do you do, right? So then you have to deactivate the campaign. Things are not going to flow through automatically, etc. Now, if you had selected this option before you activated the campaign, you wouldn't have to touch the campaign. All you'd have to do is go back to the segment, simply upload those new contacts or get them into the segment, however you choose to do it. And then within an hour, because that's the reevaluation frequency that you've determined, within an hour, those new 35, did I say 35? Those new 35 contacts will flow from the segment directly into the canvas, and Shazam, out they'll go. So it's a really helpful step. We use it a lot for newsletters as well. So a newsletter campaign is not about just simply having an audience and one email and then send it out the door. The newsletter typically is valid for 30 or 60 days. And so the campaign runs for 2 months. And every day, we just do it daily. We don't need to do it hourly. We just say daily, Eloqua, are there any new subscribers? Yes, there are. Great. Bring them in and send out that email. And so it just means that that person that is a new subscriber, they don't have to wait 2 months until the next campaign goes out the door. So that's your reevaluation frequency. It's basically reevaluating at a time frame that you determine exactly what each element is doing. And it's no different, it's no different than say with the shared filter. So the shared filter is the question that Kath asked earlier. So Kath wanted to know, can I be really specific about a particular link in an email? So if, for example, we had something like this. We had a segment going into an email, and then from there in here. Now, at the moment, the way that would work, people would come in, they'd be sent the email, they would immediately go through here to the shared filter, and then from the shared filter, they would go in either a yes or no direction. However, if we adjust that and give it an evaluation period, and let's say 5 days. Okay, so for 5 days, Eloqua is going to ask the question, and it will do it on a set schedule. And every time I talk about this, I have to go to the help center to get that schedule for you. So let me pull that up. But essentially what it's going to do is for 5 days at a set schedule, it's going to ask the question, did they click on these links? Did they click on these links? A bit like a small child on a road trip, right? Did they click on the link? Did they click on the link? And if they did click on the link, then the answer is yes, they'll progress immediately. However, at the end of the 5 days, if the question is still no, they didn't click on the link, well, then the person will progress from there. So you notice also a little stopwatch. That's actually, if you're wondering what on earth that is, it's a little click sort of stopwatch. And this means that you have configured the evaluation period for that particular one. So essentially, if your evaluation period is, I think, for a day or greater, it's every hour. If you set it for, it goes in, I think it's 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, and a day is the different evaluation steps. And it all depends on the range that you put in here. But if you search evaluation period in the help center, you should have better luck than I did in finding it. But why use it? Okay, so if you think about a nurture campaign, for example, because what you're probably normally doing is something like this, where you would have your email, and then you would nominate a particular wait step, and you would say, let's say 5 days. Then from there, you may do as Kath had suggested and want to check to see, did they click on a specific link in there? So you won't, excuse me, you won't select an evaluation period. So in this model, what's happening is the email is sent out to 3,000 people, then 3,000 people simultaneously will sit here for 5 days. And at the end of the 5-day period, we'll check to see of those 3,000 people who did or did not click on the email. Now, that could be perfectly fine. However, if somebody's clicking, that's generally a fairly positive indication of engagement. So if they're engaging, is it not perhaps better to move those people through the campaign a little faster than everybody else? And so that's where you can eliminate the wait step, like so. So I'll get rid of that. And so now what we're going to do is have the 3,000 people be sent the email. They'll immediately come into this step right here. And then what happens is for 5 days, we will ask the question, did they click on that particular link? Did they click? Did they click? Did they click? As soon as the answer is yes, they will move on to the next step. And so from your point of view, that could be onto an email, for example. So if it's going onto an email straight away, one thing you've got to be mindful of is these things happen in real time. So it might be prudent, even though they've obviously clicked, that's great. But what you've got to do is think about it in a very literal sense. Let's say they get this email at 10 a.m. They open it at 10:05, and by 10:06, they've clicked on something. It's highly likely the evaluation, well, it will depend. It could be if 5 days, so at least an hour later, they will come straight through and be sent the next email. So you may want to think about applying a wait step here. It all depends on your audience. It all depends on how quickly you think you want to get that next email to them. There are lots of variables, and it's going to differ for everybody. But that is just an idea, something for you to think about, so that you don't end up sort of bang, 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 having emails appear in people's inboxes. So that evaluation step or the reevaluation step basically does the same thing. The reevaluation frequency, or here on the shared filter, the evaluation period, is really helpful, certainly from a lead generation kind of nurturing type of campaign. Really, really helpful. Okay, so submitted form. So a common mistake made by users on this one is that the key thing you've got to understand, the question you're actually asking here is, has a campaign member, and a campaign member is somebody who is in the segment, has a campaign member submitted that particular email, so submitted that particular form. And so again, you've got options here in relation to reevaluate or evaluation. And so I would typically set it to be whatever I do here, it's kind of the same. If it's submitted within the last week, evaluation period would be the last week. You can play around with that if you want to. Again, you don't need to have the wait step here in this instance if you don't want to. And that way you can just progress people immediately. But it will only ask the question of a campaign member. So when doesn't that work? So the best example of when that doesn't work is an event. And the salesperson comes to you and says, hey, what's going on? My customer who was sent the invitation, they got their reminder to attend the event, but they sent it on to James and James registered, but James never got the reminder. So why didn't James get the reminder? Well, that's because James wasn't a campaign member. So he wasn't originally put into the canvas. And so he will not be sent the email. Now you can fix that, of course. We can use the form to push all form submitters onto the campaign so they become campaign members. So there are ways around it, but you just need to be aware of what you're asking. And so specifically, this can be really helpful because you want to really narrow your focus. You want to narrow your focus on campaign members by asking that particular question. I typically will use a shared list in place of the form. I'll use the form to put everybody into a shared list, and the shared list essentially becomes my source of truth for who has actually registered. Okay. Now, visited the website. Again, visited the website is really helpful at that top of funnel point. Again, you've got an evaluation period and times to sort of play around with that. But again, notice there's no ability here for you to nominate a particular URL. Okay, that's not what this is about. This is really just looking to see that the person has been visiting the website. So again, think top of funnel, think nurturing campaigns at that really top stage. You're really just trying to gauge engagement, and certainly going from your email comms to the website is a good indication that they're engaging. If you want to get really narrow though and focus on a particular URL or set of URLs, think about your website and your products and services, maybe product A, there's maybe 7 or 8 different pages that talk about product A, or we can drop all of those into a shared filter, again, as Kath had indicated earlier. And so that shared filter could be more specific. And so the shared filter might say, have they looked at product A pages on the website, yes or no? So that becomes quite specific. Okay, so question here from Kath. Hi, Kath. Hi, Derek. Which link do I use in my filter? The Eloqua tracked link, the actual link. Okay, so if you just use the interface, Kath, instead of, I think what you're doing is you're looking at the asset library and you're looking at the 2 different links there. Just use the actual interface to drop those in versus going to the library to do that. So just quickly. So where am I? So a shared filter. So in here, so this is the shared filter interface. And so if I'm looking for people who have visited the website, if I open this up, this will then list every single page on our website. Plus it will also list any any link that I've ever tracked using Eloqua as well. So you'll see these old HTTP, there's no S there, for instance, so they're old. But you can just start typing in to locate sort of a keyword from the URL that you're looking for, or you can paste it in there if you've got it in your browser. If you're looking for images as well, that may be what you're looking for. Sorry, let me do that again. You'll notice here the image.en25.com. So this is your image library, Kath. So maybe that's what you're trying to do. You're looking at a particular PDF. So again, if you trying to think of a PDF that I quickly think of a name of that I know. Okay, so that's product pages, enablement. Yeah, so the one you want though, if you are doing the copying and pasting from this point of view, you want to use the actual link, not the tracked one. Okay, so the tracking will take place automatically. That's fine, but the actual URL of the asset is what the person would have clicked on. So try that and see how you go. All right, let's go back to our example. So that's a visited website, or if you want to get more granular, using the shared filter to put in very specific URLs. Now, one of the other ones that's just recently appeared, and Malcolm suggested we cover this one off, is the new audience split. And this goes a little bit, Ashley, to your question about A/B testing on the campaign canvas. So the key thing about A/B testing using a simple email campaign is that you can automatically identify the winning email and then send that winning email to the balance of your audience. We can't do that on the campaign canvas. But what we can do on the campaign canvas is at least use some of these functions to automatically split our groups into two. I don't want to go into too much detail because we'll go down a rabbit hole with A/B testing on this call. Maybe we'll add that to our January or February topics because it has been a little bit topical recently. We've had a few clients ask a little bit more about it. But the audience split can be really helpful. Also, if you're just wanting to control the flow of people to a website. So if you've got a massive audience that you're reaching out to, it might be a good idea to try and split the group. And sometimes it's a little bit difficult to get your segment divided somehow. So don't waste time in segmentation, trying to use different filters and so on and so forth. If you've just got one big segment, that's fine. Just drop it on the canvas and then use the audience split to do that for you. And you can see it's a sliding scale, essentially. You can go 50-50 or whatever kind of works for you. And so what you might do there, for instance, if you've got 100,000 people sitting in here, you do a 50-50 split, and your objective is to try and just reduce the amount of people hitting the website. Then what you may do is say 50% go this way, and then the other group, you may say wait for 2 hours, for example. So wait for 2 hours, and then they go into that same email, like so. So it could be something like that. A whole range of different ways. If you're wanting to do A/B testing, then obviously you would have probably the same email with one single variant that's different or variable that's different, and that would go in one of two directions down that process. So yeah, audience split is also great. What we found it really helpful as Oracle partners helping set up new clients, because there's a range of testing and IP warming that needs to be done. And certainly the audience split automates a lot of that for us, which is really helpful. But that's of little value to you because that's kind of all been done for you, essentially. But certainly if you're just trying to play around and control the flow or doing some A/B testing, it's just a nice way to be able to automatically split your audience. So nothing to rush there. All right. Now, the other one I had floating around here was the submitted form. Form submit. So form submit, what this one does, and you'll notice it's a through step, meaning that you come in at the top and go out at the bottom. So if in the flow or the flow of a campaign, you want to be able to trigger a form submission, and there can be a range of reasons you'd want to do that. You may want to send people off to the CRM. You may want to send a notification email to the sales team. There could be a range of different reasons as to why you want to do a form submit. It could be think of it as a blind form submit, sort of. Different to your RSVP yes and no scenarios, a little bit different. But if you wanted to trigger a form to do something, to perform a particular action, then you can push them through the form submit step. So essentially you go ahead and build your form, but the form is probably reasonably basic. It's probably just email, first name and last name, and you only would really add first name and last name. So it's a little bit easier to manage that information when you're looking at the form submission data. Then the processing steps will all trigger and happen. So not something I use a great deal, but when I have used it, it's extremely helpful. So that's something for you to think about. Then external activities. So we can automate external activities. And this typically, if you're going to automate them in this context, it's probably got more to do with either post-event communications. So you wanting to sort of thank you for attending. Sorry, we missed you. You could push people straight through the external activity and have that assigned to them based on the list that you've uploaded from your physical event. But you could also do the same thing from a webinar, for example. So as your webinar data comes back in and confirms that a person has attended or not attended, then you could create the external activities from that as well. Then I'll cover the apps a little bit later, but let's have a look at some reporting. So to show you the reporting, I need to go to a campaign that's actually live. And this is the campaign canvas that delivered you your email reminder and your SMS if you requested one today. But if we click over here on the right-hand side, you'll see there's a range of reports available. Now, this is the fastest way for you to get some insight information about the campaign holistically. We can drill down later and have a look, but what the campaign report is going to show us is a roll-up of all of the engagement across the emails, etc., and show you a little bit about the open rates of form submissions and those sorts of things that make up that particular email. Now, this particular campaign only sends emails and doesn't request any form submissions, so that's why there's nothing down here at the bottom. So the unique open rate on this one is 26%, which is great. Click-throughs, I wouldn't expect a great deal of click-throughs because most people probably had already put things into their calendars, etc. But that's one of the quickest ways that you can access campaign reporting directly from the campaign canvas. So a reminder, how do I get there? So over here on the right-hand side, you click on the analytics menu, and you'll notice they're broken down by operational reports and insight reports. So again, campaign analysis available right there. Now, these ones are also quite interesting. So email stats, this is a literal sort of number. So let's have a look. It's the last 2 weeks. If I change that to the last 3 months, and then we've got live today. So emails sent, second reminder, 78 went out the door. 31 unique opens, 29 or 15 unique click-throughs, etc. And so this information will be current as of right now. The insight data typically can be up to an hour. It might take an hour or so for that information to flow into Insight, which is a separate database to Eloqua. But this information that you're looking at is accurate as of right now. So that can be really, really helpful. And the other thing that makes your life easier, though, is your naming convention of your emails. So the smarter you are with your naming conventions of your emails, the more valuable this information is to you and the more insight you can have a look at there. All right. So the other email information that's available is entry and exit reports. So entry and exit reports are really interesting because they help you understand how people are getting into the campaign, the action step that got them in. So most of these are cloud actions, meaning that it's actually from Zoom. Zoom has brought you in, and you'll see we've got a breakdown there of people who have registered for Australia versus for the US. And so this particular canvas actually covers both. So you'll see here at the top, it says from a form. And so the form is pushing people onto the campaign canvas, then driving them through the Zoom registration app, and then flowing down and being sent different reminders and so on and so forth. And there's the US section over there. So essentially, it's exactly the same on the left and the right. It's just on the left, we're focusing on the AsiaPac audience. And on the right-hand side, we're focusing on the US and the EMEA audience for that particular process. So the driving of a magical experience, this one can be this one just takes imagination a little bit more than anything else. And it just to have a think through what it is you're actually trying to achieve. Now, for some of you, and there's that sneaky QR code again, if you want to register for October, you can do that now. If you have campaign canvases that look like this, then you got to kind of ask, well, why really? I'm just not sure what value you're really getting from Eloqua from that point of view. You could use Outlook to do that. You don't need an Oracle to help you get those emails out the door. So we obviously want to improve. And one of the questions that came back to me a couple of times was, we want to use the campaign canvas. We understand the multi-step campaign concept, etc. But in reality, we're really just sending one email. Okay, so why do we need to do it? Let me show you an example, and I'm going to use stats from today's campaign, okay, as in the invitation campaign that got you to register to join us today. So that single line that you can see on the screen right there is the total number of registrants who responded to the very first email that we sent out the door. So the very first email, which I call email number 001, is an invitation that goes just to our subscribers. So of those subscribers, that was the response that we got. Now, if I only sent one email, that would be it. That would be anyone that would show up. Okay. But I don't. I use a multi-step campaign, and we come at it from a number of different angles. Okay, so for people who attended last month, but I'll start from the top and go down so you understand. So the first email that went out for those people who attended last month, you see some of those registered for this month. We also started doing slightly different invitations for those people we can identify as being a new subscriber. So they've subscribed after the last user group. And so we deliver them a slightly different sort of welcome and come along and register for the next live user group. So you can see we've got a few people there. Then the big one, obviously, is the invitation that went out to our current subscribers. Now, for those people who didn't show up last month, so they registered for last month but didn't show up, we sent them an invitation. So you can see there's a good chunk of people there as well that registered based on that email. Then this month, based on the topic, we thought we'd reach out to a group of people who we know use Eloqua but are not subscribed to the Eloqua user group. They've opted into communications from Marketing Cube, that's fine, but they're not actually subscribers of the user group. So we reached out to that group, and you can see a number of them also responded. Then now we start to get to the 002 email. So what that means is this is, again, the people that attended last month, but it took the second email to register for this month to get them to actually fill in the form and register. Then the second invitation to subscribers. So again, this one's just the standard subscriber email that goes out. And it took the second email. So not the first one, but the second email to get those people over the line. And then finally, there's another group there, which is number 3. Now, those people haven't received 3 emails. It just simply means they were sent the first invitation, they opened it, but they didn't register. And so email number 3, which is their second email, probably totally confusing you at this point, that's their second email, is just worded ever so slightly. It's basically saying, hey, it looks like you had a chance to look at the agenda, but you haven't registered. We'd love to see you come along and register. That's really what that email is all about. And then we picked up some from our blog and some from our website as well. So you asked me the question, why should we send multiple emails? We're just kind of doing an audience and one email. I'd say to you, that's the answer to the question right there. Obviously, there's a huge number of people there who have registered to attend this month, that if I had only sent one single email, there's a whole bunch of people that I would have missed. Okay, now there are a whole bunch of variables involved here, of course. You know, the fact that this is a regular thing, you're a regular audience, you kind of probably subconsciously know that if I miss this email, I know Derek's going to send me another one, etc. There's a whole bunch of psychological factors at play, I'm sure. But let me show you what that looks like on the campaign canvas so you can see the difference and what it means. So something else that I'd encourage you to think about is a naming convention, and a naming convention for not just your campaigns, but everything just pays dividends big time. So, and you'll see if you scan down here, it all sort of blends and you can see exactly what's going on. It makes life so much easier in Insight to be able to break things down. So I'm going to take you to the invitations and show you what happens here with those email 1, 2, and 3, so you understand the difference as to why creating a magical experience is not about just simply sending one email. Okay, so we're going to follow the existing user group members here. Okay, now you'll notice that some are gray and some are green. So gray means it's a fixed list. So it's add members once the campaign is first activated, versus this one is add members regularly. So what we're doing is roughly twice a day for every 4 hours, we're checking to see if there are any new subscribers, because we want to make sure if they've subscribed that they don't have to wait a whole nother month to get an invite. We want to obviously get them involved as quickly as we possibly can. So we're going to come down here. Off we go, checking in some compare date elements. So this is just trying to make sure that we don't send emails with the wrong information to people after a certain date. And so there's email number 1. So this is actually the first invitation that goes out to people. They come down here. We wait now for the time to send the second invitation. And here you can see emails 2 and 3. So if you follow it down, we first of all ask the question, did they open the first one, yes or no? If they didn't, we come down here. I'm using a shared list to see if they've actually registered. If they haven't registered, they then get email number 2. Now, email number 2 is pretty much exactly the same as 1, except the subject line changes, and we usually adjust the preview text, because remember, the people that get email number 2 didn't even open email number 1. So we don't need to change copy on the inside of the email, just simply the subject line and preview text, because whatever we did for the first one clearly didn't work. All right, so now email number 3. So these people have in fact opened the first email. They haven't registered. You can see the yes, no response underneath there. And if it's a no, they haven't registered, this one goes out. So again, this one will have a slightly different subject line, and occasionally we'll just tweak the language inside the email. So it's not just simply a copy of the first one. They've already read the first one, and that didn't get them over the line. They didn't register. Now, they got distracted, or maybe the topic didn't resonate, whatever. But I think to have some level of integrity in that process, we need to slightly change the pitch to see if we can get those people interested in attending. And down they go. Now, you'll notice all these different wait steps at the bottom. They become really helpful because we name them. We don't just leave them as wait. When we look at the exit report then gives you a lot more information. So if I didn't name them, this would just simply say, wait, which doesn't really give you a whole lot of helpful information. So we had some non-members there. We can see the US subscribers. They've all just more recently gone through that process. If I keep scrolling down, you'll get the flag there, and you can keep scrolling, etc. And so these are all the Exit AU subscribers, etc., and what they've been doing. Now you can also adjust this. So if you're looking to say the last 30 minutes, which probably won't show me anything. No, I didn't think so. Let's try the last 12 hours. Yeah, there we go. Last 12 hours. And it's mostly the Americans. Yeah, they would have exited. So it's all finished. You can export that information as well if you need it for whatever reason. So all of that information just becomes really helpful instead of just simply naming things exit, wait, for example. Okay, let's have a quick look now at some of the campaign canvas elements, or apps, I suppose. So there are a range of different apps that you can use on the canvas to help you deliver an experience with sort of third-party applications. Not all necessarily third-party, the apps. Some are Oracle apps that have been built, but there are certainly third-party apps as well. So integrating with your CRM is a more common one. Webinars is a very common one, etc. So let's have a look at that. Go back to a blank campaign. All right. So generally, when we're talking apps, they'll often appear at the bottom, but different apps behave differently. So you can see here, we've got Zoom, Facebook, LinkedIn, incoming SMSs, LinkedIn, we've got On24, GoToWebinar. There's a whole range of them, but these all relate to, because they're sitting under the audience section, these all relate to, for instance, if you wanted to use the Zoom webinar registration page instead of an Eloqua one, which we obviously discourage you from doing, but if you did, that would be the Zoom webinar registration feeder. And so exactly the same, you can see the On24 crowd have exactly the same thing, as does GoToWebinar. So all of these do exactly the same thing on their respective platforms. If you have people register on their forms for the webinar, then you can have them automatically come into your campaign canvas, which can be extremely helpful. You don't want people floating around in different platforms. You obviously want to get them into Eloqua. You might want to think about the opt-in process for that as well. Now, one of the most common apps that is used is the contact washing machine. Now, if you don't see these particular apps on your instance of Eloqua, it just simply means they've not been added. So if you're a administrator of the platform, you can add them. If you're not an administrator, Marketing Cube can assist you, but your administrator can, I'm sure, take care of that for you as well. Now, the contact washing machine, I'd encourage you to go to the help center to really have a close look at what the contact washing machine does, because it's quite an amazing little application. From a data cleansing and point of view, it's quite extraordinary, the range of functions that it can perform. One of the most basic ones that you might do is making sure that when you send out an email, that a person's first name is in fact in proper case. So you can add conditions if you want to, but usually the action you want to do here is to make it a proper case. So essentially what we're doing, we call it the contact washing machine. So essentially what we're doing is we're going to that person's contact, we're lifting their name out of that field, we're scrubbing and washing it, and then we need to put it back into the field. And in this case, we're making it proper case. And so now I need to nominate the destination. And the destination obviously is to go back into the field called first name. And so that's how we always make sure that the first name that it populates in an email is in fact proper case by using that particular step within the contact washing machine. Now, if your system is integrated with a CRM platform, the CRM platform often wins. It's a bit like the crown. The crown must always win. The CRM will generally win in this case. And so if it's going to turn everything back into uppercase, which is a royal pain, then we can use the contact washing machine to override it exactly at the point before the email is sent. So that can be a time saver for you. You can add more, you can add additional steps. There's mathematical functions that can be performed. There's a whole swag of different things that you can play with there, okay? And there it is. So the way that would work is you would have your segment sitting on top. You would first of all go through the contact washing machine, and then from there you would go directly into your email, like so. Okay. All right. Update rules is something that you probably, well, it depends. The update rules are incredibly powerful. Example. So we use a construct within our instance of Eloqua around region. So if a person tells us they're in India, we update their record to say that the region is Asia. If they tell us they're in Canada, we update the region field to say North America, for example. So, and these all just happen by themselves in the back end. Eloqua takes care of these. Update rules can also be used to do that directly here on the canvas if you need to for some reason. But there's a whole swag of things that can be done to really maximize the automation. So typically, if you find it's the end of a campaign and you're manually going through a process of updating certain information, it's highly likely that we could potentially build an update rule to take care of that for you. It may happen in concert here on the canvas or maybe on a program canvas. There can be a range of ways to do that. The other key point to identify here on the canvas is the construct of adding and moving, okay? So when we say add to a campaign versus move to a campaign, if you actually have a look at the elements themselves, if I zoom in there, no, I can't zoom in for the minute, you will see this is a through step versus move to campaign is an end step. So adding someone to a campaign means that they will continue to stay on this particular campaign canvas, but you're going to add them to another one simultaneously. So now they're in two campaigns simultaneously. However, if based on a particular response, you want to do something completely different, you can take a person and move them to another campaign. Okay, so that means we take them out of this campaign canvas and we move them to another campaign, completely separate. Date calculator can be really helpful if you've got a lot of date fields that you're working with. Date calculator can do a whole bunch of things in evaluating dates. So think of membership expiry, think of contract expiry information, warranty type information, anything in the way you have a date in particular, and you want to do something with that date that's quite specific, then the date calculator can help you go through that particular process. For our Salesforce clients, for those who are using Salesforce CRM, the integration here is great because it allows you to update campaign member status. So if you set up your campaign in Salesforce and you have campaign member statuses, the defaults, I think, are sent and engaged, I think it is, or something like that. Sent and something or other. Sent and responded. But we can add to that. So if you wanted to put more specific information, as in registered for event or no-show at event or whatever the case may be, we can use the Salesforce integration there to push that information back into, actually, sorry, I apologize, to that one there. The integration does other things. It's this one here, the campaign association. So this campaign association one is the one that enables you to update the campaign member status within Salesforce. Alrighty, so when I sent you the email for today's session, I said we wanted to cover as much as possible within the time frame that we have. Normally, this is like a full day session for new clients. So this is really very much a crash course in the campaign canvas, and time is definitely, we're at 11:59 and 30 seconds. So there's that sneaky QR code again. I'm happy to stay on the line for a few minutes if there are additional questions. I trust that you've picked up something new today, or perhaps we've been able to cover some things. Please keep in mind, though, there were some questions submitted that are going to be more relevant for October when we look at emails and some of the email reporting, which is a question that some people had. So we'll cover more of that next month, and then we'll look at landing pages and forms in more detail in November. And then it's Christmas. Everybody gets the month off, and we'll see you back in January. But can you believe the year's almost over? So happy to stay on the line. Thank you so much for making some time to join us. If you do have any questions, as I said, happy to stay here, and we'll go from there. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next month. So a question here from Alana. Alana, if you're still on the line. So just wondering, with additional apps, am I able to jump into the App Cloud catalog, download, and then they're available in the canvas? Yeah, that's pretty much how that works, Alana. So as long as you've got administrator access, you can go into the systems area at the back end of Eloqua. If you wanted to let me know which particular app you're looking at, if there's a specific one, I can probably give you a little bit more information on that. Contact washing machine. Look, Alana, the contact washing machine is fab. And look, there's probably not a campaign that I don't use it on. So basically what you would do is head off to settings, then to apps, and then here you are in the App Cloud catalog that you just referenced. And if you click on this hyperlink at the top, that will take you off, and you're already logged in, which is good. So you're already logged into Eloqua, which is good. So you come here, type in washing machine and contact washing machine, the first one that comes up. So it's actually an Oracle app, and then click on Get App, and it'll go through it. Generally, most of the answers will pre-populate. You've just got to authorize who you are, etc. And then that will connect and load it into Eloqua for you. And then once you've been through that process, absolutely, you'll be able to see it on the campaign canvas. You'll be able to see it directly on any canvas, and it will pop up usually down the bottom here. Where is it? It is right there, contact washing machine. And so it will appear. So just as long as you've got the ability to do that from a admin level of access, yes, you can take care of that. Let me just see if there's more. Yeah, we've got a few more questions popping up. Nina, hi Nina. Just a question about the notification email from the hi Nina. Okay, I got it. There are instances that we received 2 notification emails when we clicked on a call to action with a blind form. Just wondering, okay, so if there's two notification emails being sent, that typically means that there is a configuration somewhere that is causing that to happen. So I would go back to the form processing steps and have a look at that. There will just simply be 2 elements or 2 form processing steps that for some reason have been triggered. So it's very rare that Eloqua will just randomly decide to send you two. So perhaps, just have a closer look at those processing steps and the conditions that have been assigned on those. You're welcome, Alana. Thanks for staying around. All right. If there are no other questions, then we might call it a wrap. But thank you, guys. Thank you so much for, you're welcome, Nina. Thanks so much for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you next month. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.